Majority of the time, yeah, it's like it's more of a push down than a pop up. Like, and I think the pop up word is probably one of the worst words in surfing. The worst thing you can teach a beginner is to stand up straight away, first lesson.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Linton Fafie. Linton is one of the coaches at Surfing Australia's High Performance Centre. He also works out of Byron Bay, and you can check him out at nextlevelsurfcoaching.com. You know, every time I interview a surf coach, I always ask for recommendations for other guests, and Linton has come up multiple times. So we finally got to line up our diaries, and he did not disappoint. Loads of gold in this episode. Linton has also done a lot of DNS courses, which we reference quite a few times in the episode. So if you are not a regular listener of the show, that might be a new term to you. If you go back to episode 50, where I interviewed Dr. Rintala, all about DNS, if you want to learn more about some of the details of DNS. Linton has some great perspectives on some of the fundamentals of wave reading, how to help intermediates overcome plateaus, the ideal pathway for beginners, the difference between a good beginner lesson and a tourist experience. As I said, lots of gold in this episode. I highly recommend you follow Linton's Instagram, which is at Next Level Surf Coaching. There will be links to Linton on my Instagram and, of course, show notes to this episode. And one announcement I'd like to make before I fade in the interview is I have finished setting up my website, and I am now working as a therapist and life coach, open to international clients via Zoom. You can check out the page on my website. If you go to surfmastery.com, you will see it there, and there will be a direct link to that in the show notes. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Linton. How did you start surfing?
My family surfs, so father, brothers, they all surf. So it was just a natural progression that I was going to get into it. I pretty much didn't know anything else but surfing. Yeah, ever since I can remember, I started getting into surfing. That was just life down at the beach.
Were you too young to remember your first wave?
Yeah, I kind of remember my first wave on a surfboard, but there was years there of just boogie boarding and playing in the whitewater. And I remember like one of my earliest memories, I think, of like sitting at one of these, playing in the water with one of my friends with like a little boogie board. And I remember looking at this island that was there and like going to my mate, like, if a wave that big came through, would you catch it? And like we were all both freaking out. And I remember like mate like sort of and I was like, if it was fat, I'd catch it if it was fat, but if it barreled, I probably wouldn't catch it. But that's probably one of my earliest memories. I think I would have been like 5 years old, I think.
What beach was this?
This is down on the south coast, New South Wales, at Tommykin, where I grew up, Barlings Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to all the South Coastians out there.
Yeah. When did you get into coaching?
Probably got into it like in my early 20s. I was, my brother started a surf school, surf tours here on the east coast of Australia. And I kind of started helping him out with a few trips. And then I was kind of living in Western Australia at the time. So I came back during the summer and I sort of helped him out. But it wasn't until I kind of had a bit of a, when you're a bit of a life-changing moment. I was working on the mines over there, doing a lot of construction, trying to earn millions, but it wasn't really making me too happy. So I was like, I'd rather just be on the beach coaching, just making, I was way happier making way less money than I am now making, good money. So I just hit a mate up that was working for Surfing Western Australia at the time, and see if they had any work. And I did my level 1, and it kind of all just sort of spiraled from there, really. Yeah, but when I was a junior, I got coached. We had a South Coast coaching squad. It was kind of one of the earliest ones I can remember. It was just when coaching was first just starting to happen. And that was down the South Coast. Me, Paul Morgan, good mate Jimmy Newich, Nathan Bartlett, a few other crew from the South Coast, and we'd all go up to Ulladulla and do a little coaching squad with Ben Valsey, who's working up at Palm Beach High now up at Queensland. He runs the surf performance program up there.
Okay, so he was like your original coach.
Yeah, so I remember like when he sort of first explained to us like doing a floater and just to bend your knees and land low, it was just like this, whoa, I didn't even think of that, but just such an easy little principle. And yeah, so I carry that on, yeah, ever since that day. But it's classic when I started working up at Surfing Australia at the High Performance Centre, because he lives up at Cabarita now. And yeah, so he coached me all those years ago, and then he brought his son in, and then I was coaching his son.
Comes full
So it
circle.
was pretty classic for that to go around like it did.
Yeah, no, I bet that was a little bit of a proud moment for him too, to see you, carry the flame and, progress it with the Surfing Australia and all that. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
So how long you been with the Surfing Australia, and how much work do you do from the high performance centre there?
So I'm up there most weeks. So I'm currently on a permanent part-time role with them. So I do about 3 days a week up there, just juggling my own stuff with next level surf coaching and things that they got on up there. Been with them fully for nearly 10 years now, on and off. So when things came up, I'd go up there. If things weren't on, I'd be doing my own stuff. But yeah, at the moment, so it's sort of 3 days a week. But it's good. It's good to go up there and work with other coaches. And I think that's how you progress as a coach, is just working with other coaches and learning from each other and finding your own little style of how you present things and put things across.
And what sort of athletes are you working with up there? Is it the average athlete or elite or a bit of both?
Bit of everything. A lot of the average Joe Blows, your adult recreational surfers, do a lot of junior athletes. So maybe they're not quite elite yet on their elite program, but they're we call it the Rising Talent program. There's such a pool of young surfers at the moment that not all of them, there's not spots for all of them in the Talent ID program that they run out of the centre. So we've developed another Rising Talent program for the kids that might just miss out on that scholarship, but are still good enough to be in the mix, but just unfortunately just missed out. So yeah, work with them a lot. Yeah, and whoever else sort of comes through the place.
Yep, and then you've got a surf school in Byron.
So I do a lot of intermediate advanced coaching in Byron under next level surf coaching. Yeah, so same thing, work with a lot of adults and a lot of the junior or developing groms that are in the area. So just working alongside, I could say, with Byron Bay Board Riders Club as their coach, and just sort of developing a bit of a pathway in the area just for kids to sort of get that mentoring to sort of help them sort of progress and find their way.
Sweet. And so with the intermediate adults,
yeah,
is it seasonal or is it consistent, or what's it like up there?
That's consistent. Yeah. So that's all day, every day sort of stuff. There's so many intermediate adults out there these days, isn't there?
Yeah, there sure is. Yeah. Do you also work with absolute beginners?
I've done a lot of time with beginners through my time. I try and stay away from it. I do get pulled in from time to time. Had old Borat come through town a few years ago, and done a couple of sessions with him. He was quite green at the time, but bit hard to say no to that guy.
So okay,
yeah.
And you're obviously living in Byron. You probably see, especially during the high tourist season, you see a lot of beginners come through. What's the best and the worst you've seen? Well, let me ask you, what's the worst thing you think you could teach a beginner? And what's the best thing that you think a beginner should learn?
The worst thing you can teach the beginner is to stand up straight away, first lesson. I think that's the worst thing that you can teach them, mainly because it tries to shortcut so many fundamentals, just that you get just from riding a whitewater, riding the whitewater and in that prone position, learning to turn the board left, right. And it kind of gives them a bit of a false sort of perception on where they are, and they kind of progress out the back probably a little bit too quickly than what they should. So I think one of the best things you can teach a beginner is just how to catch and ride a wave properly. And that's usually going to take care of a lot of issues later on down the track.
So even just a whitewash wave.
Whitewash wave, yep, just like getting them just watching a whitewash wave coming in and like timing that wave when it comes in, where you get on your board and even just sort of what I do with a lot of beginners is I even do it with intermediate surfers that are out the back and having trouble catching waves. I get them back in on the whitewater. They don't really like it too much. But we just get in like waist deep water with a bigger board, any board really, and just like catch waves just by watching the wave come in and jumping onto your board and riding that whitewater in. And you'd be surprised at how many people are sitting out the back trying to catch green waves, and they haven't even got that fundamental skill of reading a bit of whitewater and the speed and the push that's necessary to smoothly catch that bit of whitewater, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so working on their timing so they can catch it without paddling.
Timing, yeah, exactly. Timing and just matching that timing with the power of the wave and the speed of what the wave's pushing in, and having them because once they get focused on that little bit of whitewater coming in, it just initiates a bit of a focal point for them, so they're not just head down scrambling for the shoreline. They actually have a bit of a focal point. They've got something to watch. They've got something to time as it comes in, and just sort of push in so they smoothly jump onto the energy of the wave into that prone position. And then that timing, that's where you develop all your wave reading skills and your timing. It's not out the back watching the horizon. That's the next part to it all. But if you've bypassed that little basic step of just watching a whitewater wave come in and time that and jumping onto it, it doesn't even have to be with a board. It could be body surfing or whatnot. But I think that's a fundamental skill that that needs to be taught at that beginner level. But it can take time with some people. So, and it depends on what the surf school's selling. If they're selling stand up first lesson or your money back kind of stuff, which a few of the surf schools sell here in Byron, that's just the expectation that they're setting. So they kind of bypass that, hold the board for them and push the client onto the wave, and tell them to stand up straight away.
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of the times they're serving the tourist surfer that just wants to try it and will probably only ever try it once. So
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's where we kind of got lost with this whole surf school thing around the world. I don't think it's just a Byron thing. Apparently Europe's pretty crazy for it too. But just that, people think they failed if they haven't stood up first lesson. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, it took me 4 years before I even got onto my feet. Yeah, I might have been like 5 at the time, but just that playing in the whitewater and riding the waves in, it just sort of helps stabilize yourself. I look at it like with the DNS principles, how long it takes for your nervous system to mature and stabilize for you to actually get to standing. It takes a good, was it 12 months, 12, 13 months? I'm just trying to look at my posters here.
Yeah, 13 months usually, yeah.
13 months, yeah. So, if you think like, yeah, you're a baby at the time and there's a lot of things developing, but I kind of look at it that way. Like, you've just came from your mother, and then you're into the world with a whole new, you're in a new world, and you got gravity, you got to stabilize. The ground's a new thing for you. So you got to develop all the muscles and the nervous system to actually stabilize yourself so you can get to standing. And I kind of look at it like that when I'm getting someone in the ocean and they're in a new environment again at that beginner level, and they've got to learn to stabilize. That they need time for the nervous system to respond and to find that base of support for them to progress, to develop the muscles needed to get to their feet again. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. Is when you get an intermediate surfer who's struggling, do you wind them right back to that too?
You gotta It depends on. I have done it with intermediate surfers, but mainly they might think that they're an intermediate surfer because they're out the back on a shortboard. If you know what I mean, it's like they still haven't developed the skills to be out the back and ride a shortboard. Okay, so I have brought people like that back into the shore and said, "Look, mate, you've got to just do this," and it's kind of blowing their mind. They're like, "I've never been taught this before. This is crazy." And then maybe in that same session, we might get back out the back again and get them onto a wave, and then it's just way easier for them. They've got a bit of timing sort of developed, but a lot of the time it can take a few sessions for them to sort of learn that basic skill.
Yeah, no, I like that because in the surf coaching world, you mentioned wave reading and the whitewash, and it's, in the surf coaching world, there's a lot of, and I'm guilty of this as well, of trying to teach people, look at the details on the wave, look for the power zones, and that's all great for, intermediates and above, but if you think you're an intermediate and you're not really, then you do have to take it right back to the simple. The whitewash is the perfect place to learn the real simplicity of wave reading.
Yeah, I think that's what's getting bypassed, and yeah, I think it's the perfect spot for it. That I think this needs to happen. Like, I don't know, how did you learn to surf? Did you go straight out the back, or I know I spent a lot of time in the whitewater.
No, I spent a lot of time. I was on a massive 9.5 foot plastic Bic board with, in the whitewater at first. I think we were encouraged to stand up straight away. But, I was blessed enough to have, a pretty fit, flexible body, so I picked it up reasonably quickly. Of course, I built a lot of bad habits along the way, and I've had to unwind them. That's almost the impetus for the show, but...
might be because you got told to stand up straight away.
Exactly. No, exactly. And, a big part of it for me was wave riding. I was always like paddling my guts out to get waves, and then hold on. And nowadays, like, my goal is, can I catch a wave without paddling, just for pure timing, or just two strokes? That's all you need if you get the timing right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, and all that stuff that you mentioned about, looking at the for the power zone and the ripples going up the wave as you're reading a wave coming in, and all those micro details are super important. And I think once a surfer is that intermediate level, they've done the progression and they're out the back, and yeah, they're great tips to start implementing for sure. But there's no point talking about that stuff if they can't actually match that speed of the wave that's coming in just by visually. Visually match that speed of the wave. And one of the other big things is it just takes time for people to learn about the momentum, like going, like just going with speed, if that makes sense. Like, not necessarily generating speed, but you're on an object that's actually moving and you've got to stand on that object. It takes people time just to figure that feeling out. Like if you just came off land and then you've gone into the water and now you're on an object that's got momentum, and that feeling of momentum is one of the biggest things, or one of the hardest things to coach, which I'm sort of stripping it right back and trying to start coaching that feeling of what it feels like just to be on something that's moving. And I think that's where a lot of intermediate surfers, when they do get out the back and they haven't got comfortable with that feeling, that's where the arms are going all over the place and they're rushing because there's this thing that's moving and they're trying to sort of keep up with it, but they haven't really figured out how to sort of stabilize on that object.
Well, they have so much expectations of what surfing is and should be for them too. But when you look at the little kid, the reason why kids pick it up so fast and they get the fundamentals right is literally because they just have so much fun just playing in the whitewater.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're not. There's no urge for them to be out the back. Like I should be out there. How come I'm not out there? It's like, a lot of the young groms that I coach, like the real micro ones, they're just like, no, I'm just chilling in here. I'm like, cool, fine. Spend as much time in here as you want. There's no need for you to go out the back just yet. Like, but
Yeah.
when you're ready, I'm here for you. Just let me know when you're ready, and we'll get you out there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and you see this exact same thing in DNS, right? You get some big, strong bodybuilder who's all of a sudden they're in crazy back pain, and then you have to take
Yeah,
them. You have to take them back to the 3 month position or the 6 month position as an infant,
exactly.
and get
Yeah,
them to get out of their head and into their body and focus on the details of their body position and their surroundings, and that's what gets them out of pain. That's what gets them stronger, and it's the same with surfing, right?
100%. That, yeah. So it's good that you said that, because I was like, oh, I wonder if Mike's understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I think a lot of it is the expectation thing, right?
100%. Yeah. They see good surfers and they're like, oh, how come I'm not surfing like that? It's like, he's been doing it for like 40 years or good 20 years, and they go through the process, they live and breathe it. Like, it takes time, and don't be scared to put that time in. Like, enjoy putting the time in. And that's what I like to say to some of those, the beginners that I do coach, is like, enjoy this moment.
Mm.
Like, you're going to have just as much fun in here learning these fundamentals, that you're going to have out the back, or when you're ready to go out the back. That's the joy about surfing. Just, you know, the beginning part's just as fun as being advanced. It's just you're doing different things, experiencing. It's just a new experience, really.
What do you think for the average adult intermediate surfer? What do you think? Like, why are they coming to you? What's the main frustration or the pain point? Why do they reach out?
Pain point is like turns. So they want to do turns. Like, they want to get to that advanced level. A lot of it's that they want to start learning maneuvers. It could be multiple different things, but I find a lot of people, yeah, they just want to start learning how to do top turns, cutbacks, and whatnot. But then once they do come with me, that's when we realize that there's could be some other issues that are limiting you know, their ability to start doing turns and cutbacks and whatnot.
So you work quite holistically.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I see on your, I was scrolling back through your Instagram just before this,
yeah.
and a couple of videos stood out to me. One of the ones you had a guy like get in touch with his feeling and what it feels like, and also his eyes and how his eyes lead the movement. You had him sort of looking up against all he wanted to do was wring his neck, and you go like, no, let your eyes guide it. And then when he slowed down and his arms started following his eyes, and I thought that was such a great illustration of slowing things down. And
Yeah, well, it's like, you got to think that when you start trying to turn and do maneuvers, you want to be in total control of the situation. So if you can start the process by just a look, you just look with your eyes. So if you want to, do a top turn or a cutback, and you just start looking with the eyes, that's gonna initiate the movement. Okay. And then, you can add a little turn with your head and the rotation, but literally the eyes will initiate a bit of a weight shift. So you go from like toe side to heel side or vice versa. But if you've got enough awareness and you can feel that weight shift, like control just from a look of your eyes, then you've got way more to work with to get to end range. But if you just turn your head, twist, rotate your shoulders, and that whole movement hasn't even spoken to your board yet, like you haven't even exchanged from toe side to heel side. When it comes to actually driving through the turn, you're at end range. There's no more movement to happen. So that's what I'm finding with a lot of intermediate surfers. They'll go for a turn, maybe swing off the bottom turn on their backhand, or swing this way or swing that way, but the board hasn't actually moved until they've got to end range. So there's no communication from top to bottom until they get to end range, if that makes sense.
mm,
So with that, I'm just trying to get that awareness that they've got the ability to initiate. So it's just that 1% at the start, just that little initiation at the start where you might just rock from toe to heel side, and you've got that awareness. So then you can keep playing with the rest of it. So you don't have to go to end range and dig a rail. You've got actually total control out of the whole movement, not just trying to twist and throw your arms up to end range and not even get a response out of the board.
Yeah, no, that was a great video to illustrate that too. And do you do quite a bit of work with people outside of the water like that?
Yeah, so that's sort of coming from a lot of DNS principles that I've been working with, and just experimenting with just intra-abdominal pressure and, getting that connection from, top to bottom and just that awareness. So I'll probably put people in 3-month position through DNS and just work on a bit of a reciprocal sort of movement. So, just one palm up, one palm down, and just sort of get that connection of, when they breathe and getting their sort of eyes and breath and just movements of the wrists or aligned. And then we'll throw them on a skateboard, just get them to rock from toe side to heel side and see they've got control of when they can go to toe side, when they can go to heel side, just with the nuanced sort of movements of just looking left or looking right.
It's amazing how little you have to do if you get things right sometimes. I'm always amazed when you watch someone like Oki surf. It's like he's not doing all with his body, but everything he is doing is just right, and it works.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, he's so connected. He sees frame. He's so low to his board. He's so connected that he just has to do the nuanced movements, and he gets a great response from it. It's when you're not connected and you've got to go to end range to actually, talk to your board to get that feeling to your board to get a response. I find that's when the issues start. But then a lot of it's stance too. Like if you're not standing on the right part of your board, you're not going to get the right response from your board as well. So there's a lot to go into it.
Yeah. There's another video I was watching, which I thought was such a great, you're obviously coaching someone using a video comparison of them with John or the pop-up or the
yep
or the takeoff.
Yeah, the old pop-up.
Yeah. And there was such. I'll put links to these videos, or I'll put them up on my Instagram when I publish this, so people can see what we're talking about. But so there's even the word pop up makes you think that you have to pop up and the board stays the same. But as you illustrate in this video, it's you. Your head stays the same. It's the board that drops underneath you.
Yeah, on certain circumstances, but majority of the time, it's more of a push down than a pop up. And I think the pop up word is probably one of the worst words in surfing, especially at that lower level, and that quick pop up, it's like you're getting someone with no skill to do something really quickly. And of course there's going to be errors when you train someone like that. So like that, and that's one of the big things, I suppose, with intermediate surfers is they get caught up in the lip because they're so focused on getting up on my pop-up. Okay. And I suppose it goes back to your question before with what a lot of intermediates come to see me with. And that'd be one of the questions, that'd be one of the issues that they present me. It's like, oh, there's this going on with my pop-up, and my pop-up's this, and my pop-up's that. And I'll be like, bet you it's not your pop-up at all. I bet you it's the way, I bet you that's probably what's causing the issues, because you're thinking about your pop-up too much. Start thinking about the wave, start thinking about where you want to surf to, and, think about getting into the wave. Don't think about popping up, because then you're going up away from the board. You want to be going down into the wave. Like you want to be setting your rail and pushing down into it. You don't want to be popping up away from it, especially when you start surfing more challenging waves.
They obviously, they can pop up or they can stand up on a board, but it's the timing, right, that's off, or the thought process behind it.
Sort of the thought process, maybe the fact that they're trying to do it quicker. Like what got me thinking of this was I was at Kira one day, and it's good solid Kira swell, like 6 to 8 foot, and like screaming down the line, like screaming down the bank, and there was an old guy. I just saw an old guy take off on a wave, and it would have been a good solid 6+ footer, and he took off. Like as he pushed in, he kind of set his rail, but he must have had hip problems or something, but he was kind of like half up, dropping down the face, half up. His front leg was getting up. By this stage, he was sort of under the lip. The wave was fully tubing over top of him. he kind of got his back leg up, he's nearly in the barrel at this stage. And then by the time he got stable, he's sort of coming out of the tube. But he was up and he was riding. And I was like, and that was the gnarliest wave. And he just cruised through his standing action. And I'm like, it's not a pop-up at all. Like, yeah, it's important to be quick and, to your feet, and of course he could have done a lot better things with that wave if he got to his feet and, he could have threw his ass in the face and got deeper, blah, blah, blah. But has he got the ability or has he got the range of motion in his hips? I don't know, but he just did what he could do at that point in time and it worked for him and he got a crack a wave, So that's what got me thinking. I'm like, so many people that are fumbling on that takeoff because they're just trying to do it too quick. And for starters, they actually haven't got the skill required to do it that quick. And they're missing other fundamental things like setting a rail. Like it's more important to set your rail on the takeoff than to get to your feet. Like a lot of the time people, by the time they actually get to the feet, they're at the bottom of the wave trying to set their rail. And it's like, no, you got to set your rail first and then keep that in the water so you can take the drop and, your board's going to turn off that rail. A lot of the time, intermediate surfers, they'll rush up to the feet or not even rush. By the time they've sort of got to their feet, they're on the flats at the bottom of the wave. And then with that speed they've produced by just dropping straight down the wave with a flat board, then they're trying to actually engage the rail. And it's like they find it really difficult to engage the rail. And of course, they're riding like a fatter, wider intermediate board and they've got momentum, they've got speed, so they can't actually engage the rail at that point in time until the board actually slows down or they push through the tail more to actually turn the board, and then they're actually stalling and slowing up, and that's when they're starting to have issues. So the issue is not actually the pop-up. The issue is actually how they're entering the wave by, like trying to pop up or not pushing down into the board and setting a rail so the board's actually locked into the wave, and then you can get your stance right.
So I guess they think that surfing starts once you're to your feet, but what you're saying is no, you should be able to pop up slowly as you're already surfing.
Yeah, you should be able to pop up to what the wave's dictating, if that makes sense.
Like the old guy example, like he's surfing the wave, but he knows full well he's old and his pop-up is slow, but if he sets his line right, he can just take his time and get to it doesn't matter how long it takes to get to his feet, because he's already riding the wave. He's set his line, he's surfing the whole time.
Yeah, and then we take that back to the beginner level of how people are getting taught. Are you teaching people how to ride the wave at the very fundamental beginning in the whitewater? Are you teaching them to ride that whitewater in a prone position so they've actually got the ability to set a rail, and it's just like trim to the right, push down on that right edge and trim to the right, and then trim to the left. Okay, and what's one of the biggest issues all the coaches probably have with intermediate surfers is on their takeoff, they're always looking down. They're just paddling in, looking down. And that's one of the biggest things is like, oh, keep your eyes up, look to where you want to go. But if you actually went back to the beginning of that first lesson and just got people riding the whitewater, they'd get super comfortable being in that prone position and having their head up, looking to where they want to go. I'm just going to surf the board over here to the right, and just as I take it to the beach, and they'll get really comfortable with having their eyes up and a focal point of where to take the board, and then you won't have that issue at the intermediate level because they've learnt all those fundamental things at the beginning.
Yeah, that's an important skill. That's what I mean. You see Labradors set better lines than most intermediates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, but it's not their fault. It's just they've just bypassed a few things. And
yeah, so I guess maybe to summarize a little bit, hey, if you learnt at a surf school, it's not the surf school's fault. They're just trying to give you the tourist experience of what it's like to stand up on a board first time. But if you but if from then on you decide no, I like surfing, I want to take it seriously, you're going to have to go to a better coach and learn some of these fundamentals that we've talked about and sort of start from scratch again. Forget your tourist experience. That was great, but that wasn't a surf lesson. That was a surfing experience.
100%. And that's where we've gone wrong with the whole surf school in brackets side of things. It's everyone's just given experiences. They're not actually given a school or a lesson per se. And like I did with my so back good 15 plus years ago when I was working with my brother's surf school, we're taking backpackers up and down the coast here on the East Coast. And I was spending like 5 days with them and teaching them how to surf over the 5 days. And they got to the fifth day and they're actually just starting to get good. And I'm like, I just, that's what really drove me to sort of that intermediate style of coaching. They just actually, you're only getting to a level now that I can actually teach you some proper things. So we ended up developing a 3-month program. So they'd come and stay with us on their gap year for like 3 months. By the end of the 3 months, they could apply to become a level 1 surf instructor. Okay. And then they could take that qualification wherever around the world. But to become a level 1 surf instructor, they had to have a certain base of skills. They had to be able to confidently take off on a 3 to 4 footer, trim across, do a bottom turn, top turn, cut back, whatsoever. So I had to develop a way of coaching to get these guys to a certain level within 3 months. And then that's when I looked back and I was like, okay, what did I actually do with my surfing? How did I actually get taught? I didn't go to a surf school and get taught how to stand up on a board and then just went, okay, cheerio, have a good time. It's like, no, I was in the whitewater, I was doing this. My father was watching me, or my brothers, or someone in the community was watching me and guiding me through the process. Like, I never really surfed by myself. There's always someone there to slap me across the back of the head if I did something wrong and I got in the way, or maybe try this, maybe try that. Don't do this, don't do that. So then that got me thinking of like, okay, I've got to just strip this back for these guys at the start and get those foundations taken care of. So when we do start progressing, out the back to sort of greener waves in the next couple of weeks, they're going to be way more comfortable in that sort of situation. So it was having that challenge of getting intermediate surfers or beginner surfers to at least that intermediate range within 3 months. It's kind of really got me thinking of the process that needs to happen to fast track your surfing or develop your surfing.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than most people think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, that's the other thing that's out there as well that I see like a lot of, come fast track your surfing here, fast track that. And it's like, shortcut your surfing. And I'm just like, no, there's no real shortcuts to it, or there's no real fast tracks. You got to go through the process. And I see coaches and surf schools, our job isn't to fast track anything. Our job is just to keep you on the right track. Like,
yeah.
And that's where a lot of people fall off that track, and they take a detour. They could be surfing for 10 years and they never get past that one level. And it's because they've gone so far to the left that you got to bring them back to the right here to get them back on the straight path again and getting those fundamentals down.
Yeah, I guess surfing is one of those unique sports or pastimes that you can just get away with so much, but it's still fun and you still air quotes surfing.
Yeah.
Whereas like it doesn't happen like that with skiing, like if you try and go too far up the mountain and you haven't got the fundamentals right in skiing, it's game over. You're going to lose. Exactly. You're going to lose your skis. You're going to face plant. Whereas surfing, you can just get away with it. Like, I mean, you know what it's like. You go to Uluwatu on it, and you're like, how did this guy even paddle out? And they get away with so much just because it's in warm water, and it's like,
or even at the pass here, you got people that are out in the lineup, and you're like, what is this person doing? Like, but then that takes it back to when I started to learn how to surf. Like, I wasn't allowed to have a leg rope when I first. My parents didn't want me to have a leg rope because they didn't want me to go out into any challenging surf that was too challenging for me that I wasn't going to be able to get myself out of. It wasn't until I sort of proved myself that they were like, okay, cool, you can start using a leg rope now if you want, But I remember like, it's just so I didn't have that false sense of security. I wasn't put myself in a situation that I couldn't get myself out of.
Oh, this sounds like you had a great sort of early surfing experience.
Oh, it was just life. That's all we had to do, really.
Yeah.
Wasn't much else going on back then.
Yeah, I guess that's what people like yourself who grew up in such a rich surfing community. That's why you are a good surfer. And then these newbies come along and they think that they can bypass it all, and it just does not work that way. And that's why there's frustration. So you have to wind it back and get these fundamentals right.
Exactly, yeah. And it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, isn't it? It's like the newbies come and, they want to surf with people at a similar ability level. So they might go out with someone else who's just sort of new as well. And then they're like, oh, I've read this somewhere, I saw this somewhere. And they're kind of teaching each other. And yeah, it's just kind of the blind leading the blind, really.
So tell us where exactly you're working from and what's your website?
I'm out of Byron, but I'm pretty much open to anywhere. I do a lot of international trips as well with clients to the Plateaus on boats and whatnot. But yeah, under the name Next Level Surf Coaching. And yeah, I registered that name back, I think 2010 or something it was. I just remember going, there's so many surf schools out in the world these days teaching everyone how to stand up. Surfing's going to explode. I was like, there's no one teaching intermediate. There's people teaching the advanced, like the elite level for comps. There's people everyone's learning how to surf, but no one's actually teaching intermediate surfers. I'm like, the sport's going to explode in the next few years. So that's when I named business Next Level Surf Coaching.
Yeah, no, good prediction, because it has, and it continues to grow.
Continues, especially with wave pools and everything else. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's interesting. Yet we still see the tourist experience, but I don't think we'll ever get away from that. That's always going to be part of it.
It's always going to be part of it. Yeah. I think it's just, if you're out there wanting to learn how to surf, you pretty much have to ask that question, don't you? Do you offer an experience, or are you going to actually teach me how to surf?
Yep. All right, Linton. Well, I'll put links to your website, your Instagram, and I'll put these videos we mentioned up on my Instagram Reels, and I'll tag you in there when the show comes out. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers, Mikey. Thanks for finally catching up.
All right, man. Thank you.
Cool, mate.
That was Linton Fafie from @Next Level Surf Coaching and nextlevelsurfcoaching.com. If you enjoyed this episode, give him a follow on Instagram. Give us some feedback. You can do that on the Instagram post relevant to this episode, or of course you can email me, mike@surfmastery.com. Another way to support the show would rate and review on iTunes or on Spotify. Until next time, keep surfing.